This is Cate Blanchett, and I'm Todd Field, and we're here to answer your questions about our new movie, Tar.
Well, for me, it's reconfirmed that it's filmmaking at its best is a conversation. And so the conversation with Todd was always surprising, arresting, provocative, hilarious. There was a lot of laughter, but also that before I made a film, I used to think it was this perfect, immutable thing that was just made. It was a solid object that you couldn't change. And it was the most fluid, alive process that I've ever had. And so that's something that I want to carry forward into the future, but I doubt it may ever happen again.
No, I feel similarly. This was a very, very challenging film to make in every respect for all of us, and I think the sort of superhuman amount of effort behind simply what Cate had to do to simply to play the role are clear. But a very, very challenging film, and yes, we had a how do you do 3 company moves a day and still keep the thing alive, and so it's not petrified wood, because ultimately a script is a great starting point, and you hope that's all it is, that it can become more alive, and having a collaboration, a real collaboration with someone like Cate, and with Nina Haas, and with Noémie Merlant, and with young Sophie Kauer, and with Alan Corduner, and Julian Glover, and our incredible crew, just really smart, engaged artists. Having a group of filmmakers like that and being able to still find play and still be able to ask each other questions and still be able to be fluid through a process is not something I've ever experienced the likes of before. And I hope very much that if I am ever to make another film, that I have anything even approaching the sort of process that we've all had together.
I mean, there's something I related to that Lydia says there's a long sequence where she's giving a lecture at Juilliard, where if you want to dance the mask, you must service the composer, you must subjugate yourself and your ego, and to the thing that you're making. And I think that that's really important, is that you have to, any resonances, a residue of your own life or parallels to your own life that exist between you and the character will be there. And I think you have to forget about that in a way and lean into the dilemma that the character finds themselves in. Certainly there were many questions that she was facing that I was interested in approaching those questions. The character's about to turn 50, so you start thinking about time left rather than time spent. You start thinking about, she's about to hit this peak of her career. She's about to do something that no other conductor in our movie has done before, is record all of Mahler's symphonies with the one orchestra. And with a major label. She's running what is described in the film as one of the world's greatest orchestras, and she has earned the right to be there. But when you get to that as a creative person, what happens next? And so I've been thinking, I'm very lucky. I have 4 kids, and I've had a very rich career, and I'm constantly thinking, I think it's time to give it away. I think the bravest thing I can possibly do is to stop, And so it was all of those things, I think, that were alive. But I didn't dwell on them because there was so much to do, and the scenes were so complex. And I often think if you're thinking about yourself in those moments, then the scenes can become very small. So, when you look into the eyes of Nina Haas, the world opens up. So you have to give over. You have to give over to the actors that you're working with, the material that you're working on, and the demands of the day.
Boy, that's a very smart question. Yeah, I think that's exactly how I experienced what Cate brought to this role. Now, we had been in dialogue for over a year about, on a daily or semi-daily basis, about the film and about the character and about very practical things, about things that were possibilities or not, and planning, et cetera, et cetera. But that was all in a certain way very practical, but also academic, until you're actually on the floor together and you're rehearsing together. And yes, I was surprised daily by what Cate brought to this role. And I was actually surprised well beyond production, because once we got into editorial with my editor, Monica Willey, the great Monica Willey, and her crew, we had a macro, we had the luxury of time in editorial, which you don't have in production. And so really being able to go through and really look at what Cate really did, and the smallest touches that you sort of went past you in production. So I have a very different evolving understanding of the work that Cate did, that I was aware of at the time, and that I was completely unaware of, that continues to delight and surprise me even now when I look at the film.
Well, first of all, I read the script, which was incredibly rhythmic, and there were obviously a lot of names mentioned, some that I were familiar with, conductors, composers, music critics, and some that I wasn't familiar with. So that was my first thing that I had to do. But I read somewhere that Simon Rattle had talked about always hearing music, and he thought that was something that people just did, and he realized that was not necessarily the case. So I came up with this, for better or for worse, an idea that I would have music in my ear all the time. And initially I thought it was going to be Marla 5, it was going to be Marla 2, it was going to be Marla, because that's what the character was preparing to rehearse and perform. But that expanded very quickly, and it actually, a lot of Goretzky I was listening to. There was one particular piece.
Goretzky.
Yeah, well, I say Goretzky, but you say Goretzky.
No, it's Goretzky.
You say to me,
No,
I don't know. I've heard
Goretzky.
it both ways. See, we argue about a lot of things. But the piece was, what was the one that had that we called the Tar March? What was it called?
Yeah, that's a fantastic. Yeah, you're going to stump me, but I know what you're talking about.
But I had that piece, so I went back to him. But I also had a lot of chants, like Tibetan chants in incantations, because obviously she had been someone who had gone, and I had a lot of Shipibo, Kinibo, Ikaro in my ear, and then sometimes I had I just had a metronome beat in my ear, so I had different rhythms in my ear. And the other one that I kept referring to was the Rite of Spring, which is such an incredible piece of music. And I think the other one that I listened to a lot was Xenakis, which was Alex Ross. And through a lecture I went years ago to listen to Alex Ross, I was introduced to Xenakis and the chaos of someone composing at the time he was composing. Yeah.